Alternative dispute resolution in a civil law context represents any number of techniques and processes utilized by parties in dispute that allows for agreements and settlement outside of the litigation process with the help of an independent third party and without the need for a formal court hearing. ADRs is usually less formal, less expensive, and less time consuming than a trial in an ADR can also give people more opportunity to determine when and how the dispute will be resolved. In fact, alternative dispute resolution methods can be tracked to thousands of years earlier, dating from the Confucian principles of promoting harmony and community rather than individual justice. In China and then later other Asian countries or African community dispute resolution process called moods similar to mediation process in which community leaders listen to narratives of the dispute from the parties and either help negotiate a solution with the parties or more like arbitration decide or command some remedy with the goal of preserving community peace. The goals of such older forms of dispute resolutions are to prevent further conflict and escalation of the dispute beyond the parties to restore community to peaceful existence. In the late 20th century, courts became very crowded. It could take as much as 5 to 10 years to get a ruling, and once there, the court and formal trial process become quite expensive, requiring the hiring of lawyers and other professionals and the paying of high fees. So, in 1970s, one different group of reformers proposed different solutions to the court delay problem. Some American judges and scholars proposed that alternative to courts, mediation, arbitration, negotiation is to encourage parties to settle their differences quicker and cheaper without court process. This was called multi-door courthouse, an idea that people would choose a process and reduce their costs and time in resolving disputes. The US government actually funded a few local court systems to create such multi-door courthouses, and many people, lawyers, psychologists, and community leaders were trained as mediators. At the international level, negotiation between and among different countries, states, and communities are as old as humankind. It is a process now used by the 200 countries in the world to negotiate treaties, which are state commitments to not engage in war or other bad acts. And mediation by international officials is now commonly used to try to resolve interstate conflicts before they escalate to war. Mediation and arbitration are both used in both public law and private commercial law settings. Now, though it is felt that the process of an ADR method is growing rapidly, still it is experienced that the use of such methods for settlement of disputes is very much limited for expected growth. This presentation shall examine the techniques of ADR for settlement of disputes and the challenges and obstacles that can be faced. The challenges and obstacles in the mediation and arbitration implementation may be classified as follows. Lack of trained mediators or arbitrators. The essence of mediation lies in the role of the mediator as a facilitator. As a facilitator, the mediator or arbitrator has to understand and underline issues between the parties. Considering the techniques of mediation, imparting formal training for mediators is necessary. Now, it is accepted and put into practice by various legal systems in the world that training is being imparted to the persons for becoming mediators to mediate between the parties. 2. Selection of mediator or arbitrator. Even though mediation and arbitration is essentially a dispute-driven process, a mediator's knowledge, experience, skill, and approach has a significant impact on the outcome of the dispute results. If proper mediator or arbitrator is not selected for the given problem, then it might hamper the entire arbitration or mediation process and may result in a successful mediation or arbitration. Thirdly, power imbalance. Free communication and the discussion of the issues at hand is the essence of an alternative dispute resolution method. If either party appears to be in the dominant intellectual, physical, economic, or emotional standpoint, free negotiations at an equal footing would be disrupted and lead to an event failure of the mediation. Fourth, neutrality. The concept of neutrality and impartiality are essential elements for ADR's process, and these terms are often used interchangeably in mediation agreements and arbitrations. Sometimes there occurs such instances where the breach of neutrality may arise due to an unconscious bias or an awareness which may lead to the flat earth syndrome, and this identified when the mediator wanders into territory of imparting opinions or advice supplemented with lack of skill, inability to frame communication differences in equal opportunities, attitude, etc. It is also observed that many times mediators and arbitrators fail to maintain a neutral stand or to even create a perception of neutrality, which may lead to loss of trust by the parties or ultimately in the failure of the mediation process itself.
So, the first barrier which affects the development of ADR is the attitude and approach of a legal profession. For many lawyers, their first reaction to the formal advent of ADR are what's that? Does it concern me? Why does it concern me? And how does it concern me? The unfamiliarity with ADR and lack of requisite skills in the legal profession unfold sharply under the civil justice reform. The processes of ADR do not have any statutory procedures and operation. The apparent lack of experience in and enthusiasm for ADR among the legal professions is perhaps partly attributable to the traditional environment and culture in which they were trained and now practice. In fact, traditional legal education focuses on the legal arguments, case analysis, litigation processes, and advocacy skills. Litigation as a legitimate form of dispute resolution is deeply cultivated in the mind of all law students. Hence, apart from any settlement negotiations in which they may be engaged in the non-contentious businesses, lawyers regard litigation as the standard form, or perhaps the sole one, for resolving their clients' disputes. Due to the lawyer's scarce knowledge in ADR, lawyers commonly cast doubt on its effectiveness and fear that option for ADR may be sign or admission of weaknesses in their clients' cases.
Furthermore, lawyers are trained to act in the best interest of their clients. So regardless of whether their client win or lose the case, their fees are based on the volume of work done. They can therefore benefit from prolonged proceedings without interventional role of judges. They are able to charge excessive costs that are unpredictable for their clients. The growing number of lawyers and keen competition in the legal market also lead them to squeeze opportunities and strive for survival. Such greedy lawyers would slowly affect the development of ADR as what had been criticized by Judge Wayne Gao, where economic reality prevails over ideas.
So, to solve the barriers above, the first way is to change attitude and approach of the legal professions. For instance, lawyers should change their habitual mindset towards a dispute resolution. It is noteworthy that if there is a full support of the judiciary in promoting and facilitating ADR is certain, it could secure the just and efficient resolution of disputes according to the substantive rights of the parties. Hence, legal professions and the relevant parties will not so resist to use the ADR. Next, it is essential to remove the lawyer's skepticism and resistance towards the ADR processes. They have to acknowledge the respective benefits of different types of dispute resolution and that litigation is not and should not be the sole form. They should understand that even though parties may fail to reach any settlement in ADR, such as mediation, it is still a constructive process which may narrow down the differences between the parties, leading to a subsequent settlement without the court proceedings. To increase the use of ADR by legal professions, Recently, the Hong Kong government has initiated the combined mediation and arbitration scheme in resolving the Lehman Brothers related investment product disputes, which again proves the comparative beauty of ADR to the litigation. The second method is a court pressure as catalyst for moving forward the development of ADR. The court's encouragement and facilitating of ADR rather than litigation shift the conventional role of lawyers who control the proceeding to that of the court for case management so that unreasonable costs, delay and injustice will be kept under the strict control by the court. Such as in mediation, the court nevertheless has the power to make the adverse cost orders against a party who has unreasonably failed to adapt it up to a minimum required level. The judicial pressure on the courts and solicitors' new duty to advise the clients of the availability of a mediation may deter the lawyers and their clients from taking this matter lightly, since the latter may be exposed to the risk of cost penalty and the former will be liable for the professional negligence. As a Lockwood remarked, the court should be the last resort for resolving the disputes and used only for those cases for which it is really needed. The civil justice reform will thus put the lawyers under the court pressures for pushing forward the ADR scheme and will place their financial greediness in peril. The third method is the lawyers' lack of knowledge and skills in ADR can be remedied, however, through the education and training. The relevant curriculum should be offered in law schools, particularly in the professional qualification courses, in view of increasing the importance and popularity of the mediation and other ADR processes. ADR should be imposed as a compulsory part of law students' education. Further, the legal professional bodies could offer the education courses and training opportunities for the lawyers, enabling them to be more competent and proficient when advising the clients on the dispute resolution generally and ADR processes specifically to boost the development of ADR.
For alternative dispute resolution, addressing the representativeness of its practitioners is particularly crucial for a number of reasons. First, like in many other fields where clients need to trust their practitioners, there is a growing recognition among ADR practitioners that the pool of individuals providing services should, as much as possible, reflect the demographics of the population they serve. Secondly, it is important that parties feel that they can trust the neutral third party conducting their ADR process, especially since many ADR processes bring participants together behind closed doors and the discussions involve matters of crucial importance to the livelihood or identity of the parties involved. Thirdly, the alternative dispute resolution field is highly unregulated with no universal standards of practice. Now, some barriers exist because of the economic arrangement that prevails in the ADR field. Firstly, limited amount of paid work because many systems depend on voluntarism, low paid or pro bonos. The ADR field, including mediation and arbitration, relies on high levels of volunteers or low paid service by providers, which makes the opportunities for appropriately paid work very scarce. Because of economic factors, it is hard to pursue such unpaid or low-paid opportunities if they do not lead to compensated work. Secondly, lack of information about compensated work. Even when opportunities or paid work exists, information about such opportunities is hard to find. In particular, it is difficult to find information on how much work exists, how to get one, and the level of compensation for that work. Thirdly, underdeveloped market. The overall market for ADR is smaller than many of its advocates have envisioned and claimed. Consequently, there is less pie to divide. Fourthly, lack of public knowledge about ADR. Along the lines of previous points, promotion of ADR has not penetrated the public. Therefore, marketing to clients cannot rely on general knowledge of the provided ADR services. Now about the remedies. One remedy could be establishing clear entry or career paths. An effective network of minority ADR professionals could take the lead in establishing and advertising entry points and career paths into the ADR work. Additionally, such a network could play a leadership role in effort that would reduce barriers and increase access to the field. Network among ADR practitioners. The recognition was clear that there is strength in numbers, both in terms of idea generation and in terms of mobilizing for action. The group of participants in the project of ADR saw the potential of creating a network among themselves that could serve as a core for such a mobilization of ideas and numbers. Creating awareness initiative to bring attention to the need for diversity among ADR professionals could be an effective way to let people know about ADR and hence improving the economy of this law industry and further develop this law industry that is ADR. Some more remedies are: firstly, clarifying ADR professional for those interested in the field. They need to choose and have some professional to guide another person like law practitioners for them to be in the ADR field. Secondly, increasing the amount of compensated ADR work. Thirdly, improving data on actual amount of compensated ADR work, that is having a pay scale. Establishing what constitute acceptable credentials, proceeding with caution on creation of credentials, opening access to established networks, increasing access to compensate rosters, increasing opportunities to be selected as an ADR professional, and lastly, increasing the numbers of mentors and role models. Thank you.
Regardless of the efforts made to spread awareness about ADR in the UK through campaigns such as Conflict Resolution Day and Mediation Awareness Week, a report by the Civil Justice Council's ADR Working Group in England and Wales, which was based on the 2017 Provisional Report, concluded that ADR is underutilized, with a lack of awareness being one of the core reasons. The general public and the legal profession are not really aware of the advantages of ADR. Only 28% of consumers in regulated sectors were aware of ADR, whereas nearly 16% of consumers in non-regulated sectors were aware of ADR. The low usage of ADR can spoil the plan of a successful implementation of pilot programs to develop ADR because a minimum sample size is needed to conduct pilot programs. For example, the article by Wittinghoff and Newlands shows sample size calculation techniques to evaluate mediation by joint testing of both links in an indirect pathway from exposure to mediator to outcome. The Australian Dispute Resolution Advisory Council have noted the influence of pilot programs in the introduction of ADR processes into new areas in Australia and overseas, namely those that operate either in association with or parallel to courts and tribunals, those that operate within various parts of the justice system to provide restorative justice processes, those that operate either in-house or externally to address many forms of workplace dispute, and those that operate within indigenous communities using indigenous practitioners to enable culturally sensitive and appropriate dispute resolution processes. Moreover, if the legal professionals are not aware of the benefits of ADR, they are unable to advise their clients about them, thus leading to a lower ADR usage. Therefore, the UK citizens' low awareness of the advantages of ADR could be a barrier to the development of ADR in the UK. A way to overcome this barrier, as suggested by the aforesaid report, would be creating an ADR strategy, which includes awareness as one of its plans, alongside with the following recommendations to raise awareness. Firstly, education regarding the pros of ADR for school and college students, as well as within legal and professional trainings, is mandatory. Early exposure is important, as they would think of using ADR as a means to resolve a dispute when they face a dispute in the future. Moreover, students may tell their parents about this when their parents face a dispute but want to save time and money. Secondly, the disciplinary codes should be examined to place a professional obligation on the lawyers to educate clients and advise them on what is good about ADR. This can change clients' mind from litigation to to resolving disputes via ADR. Thirdly, mediation councils and leading bodies in various ADR areas must collaborate stronger to have a unified voice of mediation. They should create a new website which serves as the sole online repository providing information on all the available distinct forms of ADR as well as how and when ADR can be utilized successfully. As we live in the internet world, this website could be a great awareness platform for youngsters who always use the internet and are good at it. Youngsters can then retweet or share the website on Twitter or any social media quickly and easily with just a few clicks. Fourthly, the ADR community should cooperate with the Citizens Advice Bureau and voluntary sector and show their total support through participation in matters pertaining to access to justice and other initiatives. Joint forces usually create a stronger impact and produce double results, meaning that the awareness can be spread more quickly with more manpower to raise awareness.
With this solution, the said barrier can be resolved because the spreading of awareness increases its level. This can increase the number of people resorting to ADR instead of litigation, so much so that the minimum quota needed to conduct a pilot program to help develop ADR will be met.
Further, I'm going to talk about a cultural barrier. A country may be derived from a variety of people with different cultures. Cultural diversity can be said to arise from an open-ended range of core attributes, including those of race, religions, language, and belief. Culture affects people in many ways. Amongst the more important, it serves to place people sharing common cultural attributes within identifiable groups. As a result of this grouping, it's possible to make general observations about the members of the group and, in the process, to develop cultural myths or stereotypes views about group members. This may result in discrimination and action by society at large, which can effectively marginalize the group and increase any disadvantages that may already exist. If you were asked to mediate any of these disputes, what myths, prejudice, and stereotypes might you have to counter in order to assume the role of a neutral third party facilitator in each of these cases? There's barriers to the fairness in ADR for the members of cultural minorities. The first is the systemic bias. Although mediation is not peculiar to white Western or Anglo-Celtic culture, it has been claimed that it's not culturally neutral and that notwithstanding the significant advantages of mediation for members of cultural minorities, systemic procedural bias may still exist. In relation to the indigenous, there may be many elements of standard ADR processes that do not coincide with the cultural practices of minority groups. In terms of the negotiating process in mediation or conciliation, the way in which the participants interact with each other may also be very much culturally influenced. For instance, because Chinese culture is basically homocentric and high context, and Western culture is essentially egocentric and low context. Clashes of behavior rules comes into play in a Sino-Western negotiation.
The second barrier to the fairness is a personal bias. Actual bias at the individual level is just as likely to be a problem in ADR proceedings involving members of cultural minorities. Indeed, the private nature of the proceedings may well make the problems a more invidious one. Additionally, the informality of ADR proceedings may make the display of prejudice by dispute resolutions providers more likely. Perceived bias may also be relevant here. In an intercultural dispute, a member of a cultural minority may presume an understanding between a mediator and a participant who are both members of the same cultural group. Notwithstanding that the perception may be quite unfounded, the misconception may be just as destructive of the trust between the participants and the dispute resolver as actual bias.
The third is the power imbalance in terms of the communication. In view of the fact that ADR processes like mediations rely on the participants negotiating their own solutions, effective communication is an essential factor. As with the formal justice system, where people from non-English speaking backgrounds are engaged in negotiation, it's imperative that they have the backup and support of professional interpreters. If this does not happen, a highly valued component of many ADR processes, the opportunity for the participants to be heard may be seriously impaired. Communication involves not only an understanding of words, but also of responses and attitudes. Cross-cultural negotiation may be particularly challenging because it is the natural human tendency to evaluate another's behavior with reference to one's terms, and misunderstandings may therefore readily occur. Suspicions and mistrust may well result, which will significantly impair the trust of participants in each other and in the ADR process itself. When an interpreter is used, the process can be very time-consuming and other parties can often become impatient. Insufficient consultation can result in further disempowerment of an already disadvantaged person. Often too, interpreters will not be readily available. As noted above, even where language difficulties are overcome, cultural barriers may impede communication and prevent fair outcomes. There may also be more subtle communication problems arising from different cultural responses to different situations. As such, what are the suggested ways to overcome these problems? The first is training. The establishment of appropriate training program for dispute resolvers is a key element in redressing problems identified above. Rather than seeking to match the participants and mediators, it will seem far more important that the mediator or the conciliator which are involved in the proceedings has a high level of trainings, including a high level of cultural sensitivity. A number of cultural training initiatives have already been instigated in the formal justice system. While specific training with respect to all minority cultural groups may well be an impossibility, training should aim at developing a responsiveness to the requisite cultural warning bells. In communities where there is a significant grouping of one or more particular cultural groups, this training could of course be extended to include specific training with respect to the custom and tradition of that or of those groups. In addition, better communication is needed as well. When interpreters are used, the interpreter should always speak directly to the parties of the dispute. While moves to ensure the availability of proficient interpreters service are very important, and the employment of bilingual workers may also be considered a useful strategy. The approach will fail if the only criteria for selection of the dispute resolvers are for a certain linguistic skills and ethnic background. To ensure the access to the information is important as well. Care should be taken to use the most effective means of communication for the particular cultural groups. It has been seen that there needs to be a nationally coordinated approach to provide information to cultural minority groups about their legal rights and entitlements. It is suggested that similar coordination is needed with respect to the information about the ADR.
Aside from business partners and private personnel, alternative dispute resolution does extend to countries. It not just saves time and money, but also preserves good relationships between countries. Recently, globalization has caused businesses and organizations to operate and influence in an international scale. Moreover, technological advancement has helped to boost the global economy through electronics and the internet. The rise of e-commerce has led to the development of online dispute resolution, ODR. Online dispute resolution employs similar methods as traditional alternative dispute resolution, such as arbitration and mediation. The main difference between these two dispute resolution is the method of delivery, as all procedures of online dispute resolution are done online. Alternative dispute resolution has been recognized worldwide, but online dispute resolution remains new to many countries, especially third world countries. Hence, online dispute resolution is not standardized and recognized in a global scale. This is a major issue for parties as they may refrain from using online dispute resolution due to lack of proper enforcement and procedural safeguards as there is no uniform law. This poses as a barrier for the development of alternative dispute resolution. Since the internet has a worldwide influence, it is important to have governments, private sectors, and civil societies recognize and implement online dispute resolution, which will bring forth a uniform law in governing it. Several countries, starting from the United States, has been promoting and recognizing online dispute resolution. Statutes regarding electronic contracts and digital signatures are enacted, and various conferences and workshops are sponsored by governments to bring forth a fair and effective online dispute resolution that is widely accessible. The European Union has been actively improving online dispute resolution through three ways. 1. Enacting laws that protect confidential information. 2. Laying down provisions of quality standards. 3. Providing training for third parties taking up the role of mediator or arbitrator. Besides that, financial support from the community has greatly helped to promote online dispute resolution. Many websites are created with systems that allow international parties to take out alternative dispute resolution online. The systems are standardized and are available in many languages. Aside from the European Union, the International Chamber of Commerce (ICC) has been promoting alternative dispute resolution and online dispute resolution alongside with other international organizations and groups such as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) and Global Business Dialogue on Electronic Commerce (GBDE). In addition, the ICC also implements policies that encourage governments and private sectors to develop e-business and adopt adequate online dispute resolution. The ICC's Global Action Plan for Electronic Business urges governments to recognize the importance of online dispute resolution in e-commerce transactions. In addition, the ICC's policy statements on jurisdictions and applicable law in electronic commerce suggest the implementation of an effective online dispute resolution, which will push forward a standardized online dispute resolution in a global scale. Besides the ICC, the Center for Public Resources Institute for Dispute Resolution (CPR) focuses on the ethical standards of the providers of alternative dispute resolution and online dispute resolution. It's highlighted that these providers must have legal and technical expertise, must undergo proper training, able to set aside cultural differences, and able to maintain an interactive communication.
Since that alternative dispute resolution and online dispute resolution are heavily promoted internationally, governments and private sectors should take the initiative in creating a dispute resolution system that is fair, clear, uniform, and accessible to all parties worldwide.
Alternative dispute resolution has long been used in the past and its usage shall continue to the future. Governments, private sectors, and people in the legal profession shall take the effort to promote ADR and take the initiative in creating a dispute resolution system that is fair, clear, and uniform and accessible to all parties in the world.